Let's kick this thing off. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn for today. I am Jennifer Vanette. I'm the outreach coordinator here at the Castle Museum, so it's my pleasure to be your host today. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements. There are some refreshments on the back table, a little coffee, some water. For those of you, apparently we're very thirsty today. We've refilled, so there is more water. And feel free to help yourself to that throughout our time together. If you're looking for a restroom, there is one just outside that back door, so you don't have to go far. But we would encourage you, if you need anything, to please go towards those back doors and not through right through the presentation. And then just as a heads up for our next program, we hope you'll come back and join us again. On March 12th, we have a special Lunch and Learn that will be a little bit extended. We will show the film Red's Shadow that was filmed right here in Saginaw. And the filmmakers and actors will serve as a panel discussion following it. The movie is about an hour and 15 minutes long, and then we'll have about 15 to 20 minutes of panel discussion question time after. So it's a really special chance to actually talk to some filmmakers, and some of that movie was filmed here in the Castle Museum. So it's really cool to see those, find those spots, and you'll see tons of local Saginaw landmarks throughout the movie. So it's really special if you can carve out that little extra time to join us on March 12th. I encourage you to do that. So, without further ado, I will turn it over to Gerry Dillon, who I'm very pleased to have come speak with us about the Beatles and his Beatles collection. He would not give me many details about his life, though, so I don't know what to tell you, other than he's a man of mystery with a really awesome collection, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Just for background on me, I sold shoes for 30-some years. So this is not what I do usually, but it was 60 years ago, they say, that Sgt. Pepper's taught the band how to play. They've been going in and out of the styles, but they were guaranteed to raise a smile. So let me introduce to you what Ed Sullivan said back in 1964, February 9th. Here they are, the Beatles. And everything went nuts after that. Music wasn't the same. The newspapers called them hacks. They wouldn't amount to anything. Guitar bands are just a breeze in the wind. They're just going to fade away. Well, just last year, because of Peter Jackson, the guy that did the Lord of the Rings films, he found technology that he could bring together a single now and then and get the voice fixed that John Lennon had recorded back in 1980, and he had passed away, but they couldn't split the sound. But he came out and put it together last November. And that song, Now and Then, went to number one, 60 years after the Beatles got their first number one. Now, this is a flash in the pan. Okay, I've gone to McCartney concerts and Ringo concerts and and I've seen kids from 8 to 80 that are just so excited to see Paul McCartney and Ringo play, that this has just lasted so long. Well, when I was watching the Ed Sullivan Show, my dad invented the phrase, long-haired freaks, which when I had the long hair, I was called many times by my father. But I told him, I says, this is what's going on. So this became kind of my obsession in that. So I started collecting things from that time on. I was lucky enough to see the Beatles at Olympia Stadium in 1964, September 6th. I couldn't say that I heard the Beatles. It was just mass chaos. I probably couldn't hear for 3 days after that. But I've got the jacket here that my sister-in-law got me from that era. It was on the 50th year anniversary of it. They only made 1,964, and she was great enough to buy me one. So that was nice. A lot of this stuff that I've collected was given to me by people that knew that I was a Beatle freak. When I worked in the mall for 30-some years, the record stores, Sam Goody, Camelot Music, Tape World Net, would come to me, Gerry, we've got this stuff because they got this promotion. So they give me, they give me memorabilia for it. It's strange the things that they've done since '64. Now, most of the stuff over on this side, the hairbrushes, the bubblegum cards, the pins, the thimbles, the rings and everything, the Beatles didn't get a penny for. Brian Epstein was great with the music thing and booking the concerts and everything, but he didn't know anything about residuals. They'd come to him, hey, can we do this? Yeah, go ahead. Millions of dollars that the Beatles never saw. That's why they make jokes about what money. They never saw it. And unfortunately, when John Lennon made the crack about right now the Beatles are more popular than Jesus Christ, because during interviews you say stupid things, you don't know you're going to get... They burned millions and millions of dollars worth of memorabilia, which unfortunately is very expensive now. This here, my wife got for me, originally when it started being sold, was 35 cents. My wife paid more than that for it when she got it for me, but right now, in the catalog there for $19.99, it's $125. It's a piece of cardboard with 2 pieces of plastic on the end. But all this stuff is just different memories than that. The Beatles came out and the people, like I said, panning them. They came out with little puzzles, even a thermometer with the Beatles and that. Neckties, little plastic things, movies. They even appeared in Batman movie, my comic book. That's when they thought Paul McCartney had passed away, and so they did a story about one of the Beatles were dead in that. Going through the times in that, and the Beatles were there, it's just remarkable the things that I come upon. You know, it's like different things like that, like the death clues for Paul McCartney. It says, they said that he passed away, he got decapitated in a car accident in 1966. Well, I thought, that's strange in that. But they started coming out with clues. In Magical Mystery Tour, they have a picture of I Was You in the movie. That's him sitting in front of us, so the imposter's there. His name was supposed to be Billy Wright, and they made a hint of that in Billy Shears when they started A Little Help from Your Friends on Sgt. Pepper's. Also, the Sgt. Pepper's album was full of different things in it. On the back of the thing, they have him wearing a badge that says OPD, officially pronounced dead. Actually, it's Ontario Police Department is what it stands for. They had him in one of the videos from Magical Mystery Tour walking down the stairs with the black carnation, and the other ones had red roses, and they said, oh, that signifies he's dead. No, it just they ran out of red carnations. Different things, playing the White Album backwards on the song Revolution Number 9. Whenever they said number 9, number 9, number 9, if you play it backwards, it would say, turn me on, dead man, turn me on, dead man, turn me on, dead man. Well, I didn't do it with my album because I didn't want to get ruined, but I had a friend of mine I talked him into doing it. So I wasn't that stupid. But they sold many, many albums and they got ruined, and they think that it was a marketing ploy. Because people ruined their albums, they had to go buy new ones to replace the ones that had broken. Then on one of the last things was on Ivory Road. They had George as a grave digger, Paul as a corpse, he's being buried barefoot. He has a cigarette in his right hand, he was left-handed. Ringo is the caretaker of the spokesperson for the funeral home, and John is dressed in white like a Christ-like figure. On the back of the license plate, it says 28 IF, meaning he'd be 28 years of age if still alive. On the back of the album, it's got the Beatles, and there's a crack coming through the S, meaning that they're broken because he didn't survive. It's just different things that they had as a marketing ploy. My experiences through the thing, through the past and that, like I say, They made Beatles wallpaper, which is right over here in the white and the yellow frame. That, it's like they made everything. Now they make video games. Now years ago I thought when they had the virtual reality, I says they should do a thing where you have a visual reality where you're sitting there on stage playing with either Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles or something. And then they came out with that. I was a day late and $1 short. That's my life. What can you do? They made things like this. I mean, who thought of this stuff? They had children's books, alphabet books, imagine books. They had pop-up books. Now, if anybody gets a chance to go to Las Vegas, the Beatles Love Show is a fabulous show at the Mirage and thing. I was amazed by what they do. They tear apart a thing like there's explosions from World War II and everything, and everything's decimated. Within 10 minutes, there's not a clue left of that was there. Because you see all these dancers and everything doing things. It's just a wonderful thing. If you get a chance to go, it's expensive, but it's a wonderful show to see. Just going through looking at everything. Just recently, they came out with the Let It Be album, the Get Back thing. Originally, the Let It Be movie was very depressing. And you can't get a copy of it nowadays. I got a bootleg when I went to one of the Beatles conventions. I got to take a drink, I'm sorry. But it's a very depressing film. It's like they showed them arguing and everything else. Well, when Peter Jackson got the footage, there's like 57 hours of footage in that, they were friendly and everything. So if you get a chance to see the Get Back film, it's a wonderful thing. I'm not sure what time it is. Okay. So every year in Chicago, in New Jersey, and in, I think, Florida, they have a Beatles convention. It's called the Fest for Beatles Fans. I've gone to about 5 or 6 of them there, and what I do when I go there, I see guys that I haven't seen like in 4 years, and I ask them, well, I want to give you this for that. Well, no. So like 5 years into it, okay, because I tell them, you've been hauling this thing around for 5 years. Why don't you just sell it to me so you save the gas money? And they do. So it's nice to barter with these people. Different things that come up from time to time. My sister-in-law sent us some pretzels, the Bavarian-style pretzels. Inside the box was this little thing of the Beatles that says, all you need, K-N-E-A-D, is love. So I said, well, that's neat. I'll keep that for my thing. I kept 8 tracks. I have the whole cassettes. I have all the albums in that. Books and magazine. This right here is probably 1/4 of my collection. I've been doing it since I was 9 years old and just doing different things. Now years ago, going back to the Lord of the Rings film, years ago, they had contacted Stanley Kubrick when they were starting Apple Records about doing the movie, The Lord of the Rings. Well, they talked to Stanley Kubrick then. He said at the time he didn't know if he could do it because film technology wasn't that good. Ringo lived down the street from J.R.R. Tolkien. He talked to him. He said, not in a million years will I give you rights to do that movie. But the Beatles had gone so far as to make movie posters and that to advertise for the movie that I have over here on the side. So you're welcome to come up here after the presentation and look at the stuff that I have. Like over here I have the tickets and the photos that my uncle took and the postcards from the concert that I went to in 1964. That was at Olympia Stadium. Now, people that don't know about Olympia Stadium, that's where the Red Wings used to play years ago. And I was lucky enough to go back and see Wings Over America in 1976. So, I don't know if you have any questions. Yes?
Why don't you tell them about how you got to go as a 9-year-old you were?
Oh, yes. I was kind of diabolical at the time. I went to St. Casimir's School here, and they had a bottle cap collecting contest. I can't believe, I think it was R.C. Cola in that. But if you collected bottle caps enough, you could get tickets to the concert. Well, right across the street, or kitty corner from St. Casimir's School, was a little store called Small's Market. It was right across the street. I don't know if anybody remembers the Royal Theater that used to be on Jefferson. Well, I went in there and I talked to the pop truck driver and I asked him, can you go around and collect all the bottle caps from all the other stores and bring them to me? And he did. And since I wasn't 18 or old enough to do it, I would give them to my uncle and he won the tickets. So that's how I get to go. It's I don't know, I was very diabolical at 9 years of age. And back then I looked like Ernie Douglas from My Three Sons, you know. Short little guy, Horner and glasses, plaid shirt and corduroys, you know. It's like, and of course the nuns didn't like me because I was diabolical. But this is, you know, just things I came up with. I don't know what made me think of that, but I wanted to see the Beatles, and so I did. And it was a great, great part of my life that I never forgot, you know. They were up there, you know, but I couldn't hear a thing they were doing. Girls were fainting, falling off balconies and everything. And I was talking to my husband, what is this? And he just said, go with it, go with it. But it's just remarkable that 4 guys that couldn't read or write music at all, who were born during the bombings of England during World War II, could do what they did. Within 5 years, from 1964, when they got their first #1 single in the United States, to 1970, when they released Let It Be and got their last 2 #1, they had 26 #1 singles. I can't remember off the top of my head. Most of their albums went to #1, okay? But then, 60 years after they broke up, they came out with Now and Then, and they did it again. So they'll probably reissue the #1 album with Now and Then on it. They just did with the 67 through 70 thing. They put that on that. But they re-release things all the time, digital enhancements and everything, which are very expensive. Like the last thing they did was the Let It Be thing. They've got a box set here. It's got 3 different, well over $100. I've only bought one of these because they mass produce so much of this stuff that it's not worth, you know, the investment to me. Plus, I don't have any room. I've got a whole basement. Yes. I don't store it. Actually, it's displayed in my basement. Every wall is covered. Like I said, this is 1/4 of it. But in fact, my sister-in-law got me a license plate rim for the Beatles and that. I didn't have any place to put it on the wall, so in between the tiles on the ceiling, I have it hanging from there. And at one time it was called Beatle 8 was my license plate number, because Beatles was taken, Beatle 5 was taken. So I went with Beatle 8 because it was the Beatles and 8 days a week. So I did that, and I had that for several years, and I have that in my basement, the vanity plate. Yes? I do not know. I do not know. It's all valuable to me. I'm not going to sell it or anything. I'll give it to my children, and they can do what they want with it. Everything is just treasured to me. It's not, you know, it's not a monetary thing for me. It's like I will go and barter with things, so I save money purchasing it. But what happens to it after I've passed away, my children can do. A buddy of mine went to a Beatles fest with me, and they were selling Paul McCartney prints and Ringo prints and everything. And he wanted to buy one. He says, well, when they're passed away, it'll be worth more. So, and this is something that Ringo got fed up with. He was signing things and mailing them out and everything. Then he started to see these things for sale on eBay. So he refuses to sign anything anymore, you know, unless he does it for a charity and that. So But I would say the most valuable things to me are things that my cousin, my wife's cousin, my wife, and my children and my sister-in-law have given to me. It's like, it just means so much to me that, Christmas morning I wake up, I see something that I didn't know I was going to get in that. And it's like some things that are very obscure, too. I know they've gone up. Like I say, that the Hummer in 1999 was $125, so I don't know what it's going for now. I went to, and that's how I got hornswoggled into this. I went to Valley Lutheran when they had a thing from the Antique Society, and they asked me I asked if anybody could give me an appraisal on my collection, have them come over and look at everything. He said, no, but we do this at the Zoll Library. Can you come and talk? And I said, no, but then she called and talked to my wife, and I said, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Yes, Val?
Do you remember what was the first record you bought for the Beatles?
Yes, that would probably be Love Me Do, the first single that came out. I sold up, it was probably about 22 cents maybe for it, or maybe less than that. But one of the most expensive things I bought was this one here. This is the first, this is what they came in and talked to Brian Epstein about. These two kids asked if we want to get the Beatles single, My Body. And they said, what is that? So Brian Epstein started researching it and everything. This cost me, and originally it was 98 cents. And this is a British, so, or 98C, I'm not sure what that is, but it was from England and that. And this cost me about $70. It's one of the most expensive things that I've paid for.
What song is it?
It's My Body Lies Over the Ocean, My Body Lies Over the Sea. It's with him and Tony Sheridan. And then they do on the other side, the Saints go marching in. So, but they got a little more prolific with their music when they started writing it. It's like when they stopped touring and that. They got fed up because the point, they were singing like when I went to see them in concert, you could not hear them. And they couldn't even hear themselves. Because back then, they had amplifiers that were like this and like this. For Shea Stadium, they built one like this and like that, but it was like hearing a tin box. Because you can understand, with that crowd of people and everything, you could not understand or hear what they were saying. So they said, no, this is worthless to us. So they got fed up after Candlestick Park and said, no, we're going to stop touring. We're not going to do live performances anymore. Then they decided back in 1967 to invent MTV. The first music video put out was Strawberry Fields Forever. It was called a promotional film. And then the second one was Penny Lane. They put these out. They said, because they heard that Elvis was putting his pink Cadillac on tour instead of going on tour. So McCartney, well, why don't we put our records on tour, and do that? So they started making that. So they invented MTV. The first music videos were by the Beatles. Got a drink again. Another thing, they came and did the first song that had feedback was I Feel Fine. This was back in '65. And Jimi Hendrix made a career of using feedback in all his guitar things. So George Harrison during the anthology, so probably we invented Jimi Hendrix. They invented things like playing backwards music, backwards guitars on that and different things and that. They were just always asking for things from George Martin, who they considered the fifth Beatle. He was much older than them. He got his start in the Goonies, or the Goons, which was a comedy show which you could probably say Monty Python is probably what an evolution of that is. But he was with that with comedy and everything, but they came to him and he kept asking him, what can we do? Well, you could try this. So instead of having a computer that could do it now in seconds, they had to do loops of tape that would go like 18 feet so they could do what they wanted to do with it. They were just so hungry for how to do things. And these guys never wrote any music, can't read music. They didn't know how to read music. And they did exemplary things. Now McCartney is writing oratorios, and he's writing soundtracks for movies and everything. It's like, so I don't know. People are born geniuses out of the worst of times. These people brought such happiness and love to the world. I mean, and that's Ringo, what he says he's glad that all their music was about peace and love. And that's just great to know, you know, because nowadays with music and that, a buddy of mine that passed away in 1980, back in the late 70s, we were talking about, can you imagine, we've got Led Zeppelin, we've got the Stones, we've got Wings Wings and that. We had the Beatles. Can you imagine what music's going to be like when we're old? I think he'd be disappointed. That's my opinion, you know. But, you know, it's like, this is how history just goes. And it'll probably loop back to doing something. The world, people say, is going to heck in a handbasket, but there are things positive in the past and everything, and things that are going on now that we can make. Is just trusting ourselves to do good, and that. If there's any questions, I'm open to them. Yes.
What were the songs we sang at Sullivan the first time they ever heard?
Okay. All My Loving, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and then I can't remember the fourth one. But they were there for 4 weeks. And the next week they went back, they were in Miami Beach. And they introduced, this is a trivia thing, they introduced the only gold medal winner. He was a swimmer who was born and raised in Essexville, Michigan. And they introduced him, he stood up in the audience and everything. Davy Jones from the Monkees, on the first performance, he was part of the Oliver thing, and he was singing the same night that the Beatles premiered on at Sullivan. So it's weird. Then I think the second night they did, Love Me Do, Please Please Me. I can't remember. It's 60 years. It's like, but yeah, but 63 million people the first night that they appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show watched this. And these are people that wouldn't last long. And here we are today, still doing it. Yes? I'd say no. You see, Pete Best plays at White's Bar from time to time here in Saginaw. He was the original drummer for them. George Martin said to them, he said, we don't like your drummer. It's like he's not as good, he can't keep playing. And the Beatles have had Ringo step in for them many times before at the Cavern Club and that. Well, they contacted him. He says, I can't do it because I have to find a thing for Rory and the Hurricanes to replace me. So then when he did come in, he was not well received. It was Pete forever, Ringo no. Pete forever, Ringo no. In fact, George Harrison got a black eye the first night he played defending Ringo as the drummer. But for that, they did know Ringo, and they brought him in, and Paul just figured, Paul and John said, this is it. This is what's going to make us good, as the drummer. However, on their first Love Me Do single, George Martin didn't think he was good enough to play. So they got a studio recorder drummer that was in on. And Ringo says to the day George Martin passed away, he says, and George wouldn't let me play, and I'll never let him live it down. Okay, anything else? But I don't think I think he was just that good that they brought him in. And they thought he was just circumvented, he wasn't just lucky. Yes?
What was their number one song?
Their first one?
No, just, what did they sing the most of?
Oh gosh. That is hard to say. I know Probably Love Me Do was one of the first fastest selling, that went here. Number one in the United States, it was I Want to Hold Your Hand. So that probably was the one. Now, the English albums are different than the American albums. In 1965, they released 5 albums in the United States. There was Help, Hard Day's Night, Yesterday and Today, and that. But the Beatles considered those butchered albums because what they do in England, they'd have 14 or 15 songs on each album. Here, they cut them down to 10, so they can make 2 albums out of 3, or 3 albums out of 2. Here, and that's why they called them the butcher, and that's why it was considered bad taste. But when they came out with Yesterday and Today, they had to picture the Beatles here in butcher outfits with legs of lamb and everything and doll parts. Because John just thought it was funny. He was tired of it all being butchered. So, okay. Anything else?
Who do you think was the most talented?
I think they highlighted themselves. I thought, in my opinion, because of the longevity of everything that he's done, even though he's dead, Paul McCartney. That's another thing that was always my argument. How could you teach somebody to write music like that and last 60 years if you were just an imposter? So I think McCartney is probably the most talented. Now, there's arguments that John Lennon, there's George Harrison was a fabulous songwriter, but he didn't get his due because he was overshadowed by George or John and Paul. Yes?
My cousin, Bridgeport, she went to Detroit to listen to him.
Okay.
And she's 74 now. She still talks about what it was. Have you actually listened to him yourself?
What's that? Did I meet? No, I went and saw them live, but I'm not sure. I've never met any of them. And if I did, I don't know. I may be flabbergasted. I don't know if I'd be able to talk to them. However, at the Beatles convention, I met Denny Lane. I met, who was the organ player? I'm losing it. I met Peter and Gordon. I met, he plays on Let It Be. Billy Preston. I met Billy Preston and I talked to them, and a friend of mine said, how can you just talk to them? Well, I just look at them as people. They get dressed just like us and everything. I tell them how much I think, but I'm not going to, fall all over them. They are just people. And that's what McCartney, people that meet McCartney say he's that way, and Ringo's the same way. He's the guy that lives next door to you. He can talk to you. Okay, how am I running on time? Yes.
Was Paul McCartney more prolific as a Beatle or as Wings and solo?
I think he was more prolific as the Beatle. Because in the Beatles, they had 26 number ones. McCartney, I think, doesn't have close to that for number ones. Now, they say that in the Beatles, the lead singer is probably the one that has the most influence on writing the song. It's hard to say. Like I said, Ringo, he just came along and sang songs. It's like he would write songs on his own and everything, but he always says he turned into Mac the Knife, and he'd bring them to bringing a song to John, and he's written another one. George, however, when the Beatles broke up, he came out with the album All Things Must Pass, a 3-record set. He had such a backlog of songs that he had written. In fact, he is the first Beatle to hit number 1 after the breakup with My Sweet Lord. Unfortunately, he got sued for that because it sounded like I Feel Fine. But when you've been doing so much, so many music and writing so long and everything, some of these things set in your mind. And there's been lawsuits. John Lennon got sued for Get Back or Come Together because he used Come On Flat Top, which was the Chuck Berry lyric. So instead of paying him money, he puts 4 of Chuck Berry's songs on his rock and roll album. So he could get royalties for it. And like Led Zeppelin, they said that they ripped off Stairway to Heaven. They lost that lawsuit. Or the people that said they did that lost that lawsuit. But throughout all this music that's come out through the years, it's hard not to do the same chords to the 2 different songs, you know. So I feel that's, in my opinion, that was good for the people that won the lawsuit, for the girls that were singing the song, but it's hard to say that did he really mean to steal it or anything, or was it in the back of the mind? Yes?
Do you think they will ever get together, Paul and Ringo and the sons of John and...
No, or Paul and Ringo said, we don't want to put that on them. It'd be so disappointing. You know, even though they're talented, Donnie, if you look at Donnie Harrison, he looks just like a young George. And there's Sean Lennon and Julian Lennon, so which one would they get? But they don't want to get into that because they think it'd be an undue service to their children. Yes?
They stopped in the like 1970s. How much money altogether actually made the group, you know?
No, but
It was a lot.
yes. At this time, Paul McCartney is the second wealthiest music composer and writer in history. I think he's just below George Gershwin. Okay, but back then, there were so much things that back in 1970, Apple Records, Paul McCartney was suing the other 3 to dissolve Apple Records, which was tied into films, music, Broadway shows and things like that. There was so much stuff, and it just became such a fist fight that nobody knew how much money they had. In fact, the song "You Never Give Me Your Money" on Abbey Road is about, you just give me your funny paper, you know. Oh, you do have this, but you can't touch it. So it's hard to say how much they were worth back then. That I never looked into the money value that they had. I was more interested in the music and the things they were doing. And they're always looking for them to fall flat on their face. So, anything else? Well, I thank you for allowing me to be here. Feel free to come up and wander through and take a look at this stuff. Once again, I thank you. I came from shoe salesman, but I did get obsessed. And luckily I have relatives and people that recognize my obsession and donated a lot and gave me a lot of things. So thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so you've been invited to come and take a look. But let's not make it like a Beatles concert. No pushing and shoving, no throwing elbows. Let's keep it polite. But come on up and take a look. Thank you for coming out. And thank you.
Thank you.